Well, held a vacuum. Yesterday's AC compressor and condenser job. You guys saw that video, right? I know you're watching all my videos. I really appreciate that. A couple people were disappointed that they weren't quite as long as they normally are, but on a slow week, if I do less cars, I film less cars. Matter of fact, it went quite a bit easier editing it. Which gives me something to think about, because I generally spend about 16 hours on Saturday and about 6-7 hours on Sunday editing the week's videos. So it's quite a bit of work, and I got most of it done on Saturday and only had to do one video on Sunday. Let's get the shop open up. We're making it work. I'm Jimmy if you're new and you're wondering who I am. I've been a master mechanic now for 42 years. Well, that's not really true. I've been a mechanic for 42 years, master mechanic close to 30. The only reason I became a master mechanic is passing all the ASCs got me more money. I worked at Pep Boys and they said every ASC you pass you get another $1 an hour. And getting the master tech is 8 ASCs, $8 an hour. So I passed them all. And that was in the 90s. I also have L1 Advanced Engine Performance. I also have a hybrid certification. I had 3 or 4 heavy trucks. I was going to try to get World Tech. And then I realized it wasn't serving a purpose as far as how I earned my living. It was just for my own ego and to tell people I had it, so it wasn't worth it. I stopped. In any event, other than my random thoughts and things like that, we also fix a bunch of cars, trucks, classics, whatever comes in, tractors, lawnmowers, whatever it brings in, whatever people bring in, that's what we're going to fix. So we'll put some clips in. That way you'll have a better idea what's going to happen in today's video, and I don't even know yet. That's how I make it work. 2006 E350 Toyota Taco Hyundai Elantra classic Saturn. So as you can see, we got quite a bit of randomness out in the grass. Some of them are old cars that are abandoned. Some of them are old cars we might work on someday, and some of them just came in. You can't tell, they're all mixed together, so you really have to be on your toes around here to know what's going on. We're going to try to learn a thing or two, like how you park cars in a grass field, and we're also going to have some fun. The having fun part is the most fun for me, because it's less stressful. You try to keep a smile on your face, enjoy every day, no matter what comes your way. Someone's always got it worse, even when you're having a bad day. Let's finish getting this place open up and get started. We'll probably be on that Toyota Sienna first, so stay tuned. I got a tablet stand, foldable tablet stand, model KG310 Pro. It's a little heavier duty than I expected, to be honest with you. It was $10 with shipping. So, boom. That should be cool. And it articulates, so you can bend it so it's closer to the base if you want. You can do this. Let's try a little more upright so it's balanced better. It's pretty good. I think it'll work. I'd really like to, I could double-sided tape it to this or put some Velcro on the scanner and Velcro on this. The only thing I've experienced is that the Velcro tends to get nasty after a while and just tends to peel off and leave glue and stickiness behind. We'll try it without attaching it first and see how it goes. $9.98. What would you do without Amazon? Where would you find this? I guess Walmart otherwise? And if not Walmart or Amazon, where? Anyway, let's finish opening the shop up. House coffee this morning. Don't worry, I'll be alright. Some guys were talking about the wheel lug nuts, saying I need to get the 19.5 ones. I know about them, I always find a way to get around and get buying them, so I haven't bought them yet. But I mean, that's basically why the channel's called Making It Work, right? I don't, it's not called buying everything you need. I do buy too many tools already, I think. And, uh-oh, that goes under that. I buy too many tools already, I think. I try to not to buy too many more if I can avoid it. That's how I make it work. But anyway, I'm just gonna get this cross member on. You gotta do a couple of little things. we'll be ready to fire this thing up, check how that AC works. I gotta put coolant in it, a few 10mm bolts. Uh-oh, and this is like a new car. Something fell off, I don't know what it was. I thought that piece was welded to the latch. It's the piece that the bolt goes through and the little cap covers it. One of the bolts is different too. You can see the witness marks. There's no washer on it. I don't make the rules. Matsumoto and Masami decided to do it this way, so that's how we're going to do it. These hoses kind of have markers on them to let you know about where to put them back. That's handy. Grill and coolant. Don't forget, I got all brand new push clips too. I think you got to tap these with the handle of a screwdriver or something, maybe. I thought that one would go flush. It didn't. Uh-oh, that's already down. They fit differently in the headlight area. Oh, I haven't loaded up my Protecto pocket yet. Oh, my screwdriver got shorter. Let's try this. There it is, nice and tight. Something cool, I don't know if I showed you guys yesterday in the old compressor. It's basically got like a broken rod inside. It's basically all it is a little tiny motor. Has no ignition system, but it has pistons that move inside, generally on a plate, and the pistons move back and forth as the plate moves. Anyway, let's fire this thing up. I just wanted to show you that real quick. The finishing touches. Let's get in there and see how this AC works. Oh, the battery's dead. That's terrible. Do not turn on. Well, we should be able to discard those now, right? I'll save them over here for him. I had the door shut and the key off. Maybe he's got a bad battery too, but he didn't ask about it. Put this on auto. 72. It was on max. Recirculate. Oh, that's nice. I got cool quick. I wish you guys could feel that. It's really humid this morning. Came into work today about 7:15, 7:20, and it was already 80 degrees. And it rained a lot last night, so it's like, I don't know, 2,500% humidity or something like that. Maintenance required, but the oil is full and fairly clean. I would change it, so I'm going to recommend that. I think we're on a little bit of a budget. He's been pumping money into this vehicle. It's got some miles on it, and someone just sold him all that front end work. Wasn't me, but the maintenance reminder's on, so I got to do my part now. At least let him know that'd be a good idea, and we'll see what happens. I think I gave this thing a 4 if you saw yesterday's video, but I don't remember. I know I want to give it a 4 right now. Minivan, you know, so they take a little bit more of a family truckster type of deal, and they sometimes you can't keep up with the kids, so it's a full-time job on top of your other full-time jobs, keeping your kids from making a mess in your vehicle. Anyway, this thing's working great. I'm gonna let it run a little bit, make sure there was no air in the cooling system. It took like a gallon and a quart, like 5 quarts, and that's about what I had in the drip pan. So we should be fine with that, but I still got to run through the motions and check, right? So last thing you want to do is do all that work, give it back to the customer, it overheats, and you're the bad guy. So let's not do that. We can make it work by making it right. And then I think the brake job on the E350 is going to be next. Look at this beauty. 2006 E350. We're gonna do some safeties. No, we're gonna do some brakes. Pads, rotors, calipers. I'm not sure one hose or both hoses. We're gonna try to make sure we have no more problems with this one. This lift's not really made to lift something this big and heavy, but I'm just gonna lift the front and sit on my little mechanic seat to do the work. It's got a lot of safeties on that lift. Got a jack stand under there, got it about the right height. Get these wheels off of here. I couldn't quite get to the first safety, and I didn't want to take it out of park. What happens is, as you lift it, it wants to move the vehicle with the lift. So this is about as high as I felt like the lift was going to start trying to come off of that cross member. So that's my plan. The next safety is like another 2 or 3 inches up. It's the first safety, actually, 2 or 3 inches up. So the jack stand, it'll be fine. This here is what we call in the business no good. So new parts are on the way. I don't know if they're here yet, but this has bearings you pack and stuff like that. It's old-fashioned, just like I-beams and radius arms and all that stuff. I thought maybe the hose had been replaced at some point, but the top looks pretty nice. The bottom, not so much. Maybe they weren't ever replaced, but we're gonna do them this time. They don't act up till they get a little heat in them, and once they get hot, then they tend to drag on the right front. So it had to be pulling to the right pretty bad. All right, let's start stripping it down. We need looks like about a 21 and some Allens. What do those look like to you? I think about 8mm. Got all my tools gathered up. Brought me a big monster ratchet wrench. Sometimes when there's a lot of angle on a swivel socket, my little mid-torque won't do it. What else we got to do? I got to get my big old Knipex dust cap removal pliers. Ford's really cool with this too. They put the brake line and the retainer clip on the hardest way to do it. I mean, most vehicles are normal. They have them like this, and you can break the nut loose and pull the clip off. But Ford, you know, they do Ford stuff. Bill and Bob, they're heavily involved. So I'm going to break this. It's 11mm. I'm going to break it loose and then kind of snug it back up, so I know it'll be able to come loose when I pull the clip out and have all this stuff apart. And that'll be like the last thing I'll do. I'm not sure why they decide to do this kind of stuff. I guess it's less. They got a flat right here. There could have been a flat here, right? I don't know. Don't overthink it. Just do it, Jimmy. Put a smile on your face and get it done. All right, now I went back and forth and made sure this thing is gonna come loose and snug it back up. I can remove my clip, I hope. You guys see I usually use side cutters, but I feel like they're hard to get back here. I don't know if these pliers will have the oomph. Nope. Sometimes you can just hammer it in between the brake line and the clip. Set you guys someplace safe. We'll try that. Nope. It moved. That's all I need. I didn't get my side cutters in there now. I got enough of it visible. It's not really a big deal. It's just one of those things you're like, you know what? Could have probably done it a lot easier for everybody, but I mean, they're using technology from the 30s for the suspension, so why would they make the brake hose easy to get to? I'm just having fun. Don't get sad. Don't get sad. I'm just having some fun. Again, I'll just break this side loose and snug it back up so that I know it's going to come apart for me with the caliper off. Just to keep the mess to a minimum, that's all. Look how baked those brakes are. That is amazing. Man, those things were glowing. Don't worry, we got it. Well, I made a short about hanging a caliper from the brake hose. See how many views we get on that one. Because we're putting the new hose on it, so I thought it was pretty funny. Some people get mad, some people will get it. And I'll laugh either way. Had it set for the wrong model year. I like to make a little makeshift workbench down here. I'm going to clean all this old grease because this stuff is baked. You don't want to, when something gets that hot, you want to get all that grease out of there, you can. We'll pack it with some fresh grease. Oh, that's perfectly good. You can put these parts in a parts washer. I don't recommend it. Some people do that. The problem is the parts... Excuse me. The parts washer puts a solvent on the bearing surfaces, and it can cause a barrier that won't let the grease be effective and wipe the bearings out. This is what I've been told by old timers. I don't know, maybe you guys know better. You tell me. I've never put up bearings in a parts washer because of a conversation with an older mechanic when I was first starting. He said, wipe most of the old grease out the best you can. Use brake cleaner if anything, because it evaporates 100%. But you put it in a parts washer with like mineral spirits, he said it leaves a barrier on the surface and makes the grease not work. I don't know. Sounds believable. We didn't have the internet back then to tell us what to think, so we just went by what our elders taught us, which wasn't always right, but it usually was. You want to check these rollers, make sure there's no defragmenting. If you see little chips, it looks like little chips in these bearings, then you got to replace them. So you want to look for sparkles in the grease and chips on the rollers. They look pretty good. So we'll just wipe as much of this old grease out of here as we can, roll the bearing over and that kind of thing, and wipe it a few times. Same thing on the inner bearing, as long as it looks good. I got my bearing packer tool we'll use. We'll have some fun. Now you don't have to remove them that way if you don't want. That's how I do it though. It doesn't hurt the bearing. Some people I've seen say, oh, it hurts the bearing, but nope. Never had it hurt a bearing yet. When you pull it out, you catch the bearing on this nut, pops the seal out, you're good to go. Same thing as the other one, check for damage. Actually looks really good. These bearings look like they might have been replaced last time. I put a handful of grease in the hub in between the bearing races, because when you pack these bearings, there's not enough grease for that hub. You don't want the hub full of grease, because then grease is going to ooze out the seal and all that stuff. But you don't want the hub dry and only 2 pack bearings in it. Always put a little handful in between them. As the grease warms up, it'll kind of move around and get to the bearings and all that kind of thing, but you always got to make sure there's a little extra in there. I got some grease and some grease. I got 2 kinds of grease, but it's the same product, just different color. No need for concern. Oh, this is just a dust cap. I don't use this very often. I usually just do them by hand, but I figured I would do it just for the sake of this video, and just because I haven't used this tool in so long. You can see I need to wipe it up a little bit, and then we'll drop that bearing in it. And what I do is I put a rag on that and I put my knee on it till I see grease coming through the bearing. Little push goes It'll push what's left of the old grease out too. Come on! I'm going a little overboard to get that old grease out of there real good. And then I'll wipe it down by hand. This is why bearing packers aren't real popular with me, because I'm going to get greasy now anyway. So you don't really avoid getting greasy, you just do a little bit more thorough job, I suppose, than packing them by hand. Before I bother putting that seal in, I'll pack the other one so I can put my tool away. You can see why I put the rag on it. It's definitely a job I should have put gloves on for. I just thought of it now, so it's too late. It's awful nice of them to pre-lubricate that new seal. I'm gonna get something to hammer it in here. This is the hard part. We got to lift it on the spindle, and because of the radius arm I-beam setup the Ford uses, that spindle is down about 6-7 degrees, so the rotor won't slide off. So you got to hold the 40-pound rotor up on the spindle while you grab your nuts. That doesn't sound right. You got to hold the 40-pound rotor up on the spindle while you grab the other bearing, the washer, and your nuts. That's it. Once I get the nut on there, then it's going to stay. Everyone has a different method for tightening these, and there's a specification for it. So if you're not sure, go with the specification. What I do is spin the rotor, make sure the bearings are seated as you tighten the nut, you spin the rotor. So everything's going to be seated nicely. Then I'll over tighten it a little bit. See how much rolling resistance there is. And I'll back it off. And snug it again. And that's what works for me. It's probably, if I was going to guess, a couple of 2 or 3 foot-pounds at the most. In the old days, you used to back them off until you could rock the rotor and then snug it again until you just couldn't rock the rotor because your theory was you're allowing for a heat expansion. But the bearings need a certain amount of preload. Like if you build a rear differential, you don't leave room for heat expansion. You just put a certain amount of preload. You can feel it in the rolling resistance. You're rolling the grease too, but it's something that you just get a feel for. If I can turn that rotor, it just goes whoosh. There's probably not enough grease in it, and it's not tight enough. I did get a new cotter pin. I don't want anybody to be sad. I was really tempted to reuse the old one, but I was thinking of Ray having nightmares and stuff. I don't want that. I don't want that on my conscience. I just want to make sure those aren't going to hit the cap. This type of cap is seat all the way down on this rib. Try not to crush that. Clean all my paw prints and packing oil that's on this so it doesn't rust in storage. Now the hose comes with copper washers, and the caliper comes with copper washers, but look at the difference. That's what the caliper comes with. That's what the hose comes with. Guess which ones we're using. This one's caught on the bottom, and this one will come out on the top. So I'll do that and get the pads in, put that back on, hook up my hose, on this end, and the last thing I'll do is take that off, put the new hose up there, we're good to go. 6mm, by the way. Should have got a power tool. Yeah.
I was going to move that Impala and steal that back lift for a little bit. Is that alright?
That lift doesn't work though. Hose blew out on it. Something not right. I took the keys out of the ignition. That fixed it. I don't know what's going on with it. I think he put a starter in it already. FYI, can't get the hardware in here with the bracket on the mount, so I had to loosen it and tilt it back to put the hardware in. These clips are offset too, so you got to pay attention to how they're on. The angle goes with the angle, and the dangle goes with the rotor. So the angle of your dangle makes your rotor. I can't think of something that rhymes with rotor. Ah, that's good stuff. Now I can put my caliper on after I grease the contact points and brake hose. Of course, the rubber booties don't really fit right and they want to come off. You just move the slide, they come off one side. You move the bolt, it comes off the other side. But once you wiggle and jiggle enough, there we go. The bushings inside that the bolts go through are a little sloppy in the caliper, but hopefully we won't have more problems with this caliper. I do think it was the caliper that was the issue, not the hose. We're doing the hose as a precaution, because it's expensive to warranty this stuff over and over again, not be pretty sure. I'm going to also have to drive it and then lift it back up and make sure this wheel's free. There's a 1 in 1,000 possibility something's going on with the ABS, but I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen that happen. We're about ready to get the hose. I pulled the boots over the bolt too. The bolt has a ridge on it for that. Keeps the dust and dud out. Or the dust and dirt. That's it. Brake hose. There it is. Use move on here if you need to. You can slide them up and down and all that too. So don't worry about those. But do a bolt and nut from the top. A bolt and nut. A bolt and washer from the top. A washer on the bottom. Those are actually gaskets, not spacers. You don't crank these down, but probably about 18 or 20 foot-pounds would be good. If you don't have a good feel for it, get a torque wrench. But you can strip the threads out of the caliper, especially when they're aluminum. If they're aluminum, then it's probably only 6 or 8 foot-pounds. 11mm on the wrench. If I take the weight off of it, I could probably spin the nut out. We'll see. Nope. It's got those threads that stay tight all the way out, probably, which is unfortunate. Set that in my drain pan. Every time I do one of these, I'm just amazed with how it's in the most awkward position possible. Now, before I snug that up, we got our clip in, ABS wiring harness. Now this is 3/8 for some reason, but you might argue if it's 3/8, it's 3/8. And if it's getting gravity bled, it's getting gravity bled. Now while I'm waiting on that to gravity bleed, I'll put all my cores up, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. I'm not sure if they're warrantying the pads and the rotor, how that all works, but I'm blaming the caliper, and that's under warranty. I'm not sure if they cover the pads and rotor when they get overheated by the caliper, but they sold us all of it, so we'll see. Oh, a little more air every once in a while. We'll let it run a minute. Try to get some fresh brake fluid in this thing. I'll probably let it run till that reservoir up top's only got a tiny bit of brake fluid in it. Alright, I pumped the brake pedal up a couple times, and second go around, making sure the air is gone, and the reservoir is a little past halfway, got a little more to go. almost like a brand new truck. Even the wheels want to come off because of the angle of that suspension. Best I can do. Don't look too pretty from outside, but trust me, it's full of new fluid. Take this thing for a drive, and then I'll lift it up. I'm gonna put a little grease on that. I'll lift it up, make sure that the wheel's not tight, and if anything does come of it, I'll show you. Strange one. That's a strange one out there. Joe checked it out. Customer brought it in, said, I think I need an alternator. We checked it out, said, yep, you need an alternator. Okay, we'll come get it. You just can't kill them old Ford pickups. It's running on at least 3 cylinders, if not 4. They found loose wires, missing wires left off the solenoid, loose terminals, loose grounds, broken wire to the solenoid. Customer put a fuel pump in it, trying to get it running, brought it to us. He gave up after a few months of trying. They got a couple hours in it now, but it runs. Probably got trash in the injectors, I'm guessing, by the way it runs. Interesting though. Gotta love the old vehicles. We took this thing for a drive and we hear some wicked bearing noise. I did check to make sure it's not sticking or anything while that's the reason I pulled it back in, other than the wicked bearing noise. We weren't going to do this side because the brakes were brand new, but this looks pad slapped, so I'm not sure. And this looks like the bearing noise. Makes sense, the bad bearings make bearing noise. The message I'm getting is we're doing this on a tightest budget as possible. They only drive this vehicle about 1,000 miles a year. So that's why this side hasn't been done, but no one mentioned the bearing noise. I'm glad I drove it pretty far. After about a mile, it started getting louder. I'm sure once it gets a little heat in it, it gets really noisy. I got a hook there. I don't want the internet to catch on fire. I do have a hook holding it up. So we're good to go. Not supposed to sound like that. Remember I mentioned on the other side while I worked on it how if it spins too easy there's not enough grease in it? I can definitely see metal in the grease, so I definitely want to have him probably should replace this rotor. The pads are literally like barely seated in, they're brand new. We didn't do a caliper on both sides last time. I don't know what the deal is with any of that, but it's got replacement caster camber bushings in it. I'm just going to keep pulling it apart to see how bad it is. You can hammer the races out of the rotor and replace just the bearings and repack everything if there's not damage enough where like a race didn't spin in the rotor. If the race turns in the rotor, then you have to replace the rotor. Now we won't know till I finish taking it apart and stop talking about it. Almost looks like it has water damage, like it's been in the water. You see the bearings looking like that on a trailer. This thing's been in the water. At least this wheel. I can't roll this bearing. All right. Just another reason why I don't like doing one side. Oh, we're on a budget. Can you just do one side? People will say you never should do that, but honestly, if you never should do it, the parts wouldn't come in separate boxes. They'd come in pairs in one box, right? So it's like shocks and struts. You don't have to do them in pairs. It's just the best way to do it. We had another rotor here for it in case we needed it, apparently. So I just gotta wait. They're gonna get me bearings and a seal. That way you don't have to mess with the races. You can just drop them in. That hub is so nasty in there. It's just putting a rotor on is the best way to do it. That way to match from side to side anyway, like we talked about. You don't have to do it that way, but it's the best way. And of course I'll put the other pads on this side too. And I got to clean the seal surface up. What I'm seeing is water contamination, just like you'd see on a boat trailer. If you don't maintain your boat trailer, that's what the bearings look like. And people lose wheels and hubs going down the road because they don't service them. Every year, definitely every 2 years, but the best is every year. If you use your boat a lot and put it in the water a lot, you should service the trailer a lot because of that. Especially salt water, fresh water as well. But this one would happen, I think the seal surface is so bad that it tore up the grease seal and let all kinds of water. We've had some flooding in here, hurricanes the past few years, so I'm guessing this thing got some damage from that. But anyway, I'm going to get my wire wheel on a drill and wire wheel this all up, clean it up so that the new seal will actually have a chance at holding water out and grease in. Now, I don't like to file stuff, but there was a ridge here as if this had rusted as well. So I'm going to use a file very carefully just to try to take these high spots down a little bit. The seal is pretty forgiving. If I take off lots of metal, we'd have to change this knuckle. I think we'll be fine. I know one thing, as little as they drive it, we'll be fine for quite a while. The only problem is, if you take too much metal off here, it'll do the same thing in a few years, especially if we get any more heavy storms and all that. I don't know where they park it, but I'm going to be sure to mention to them that if you see water up to the rockers, you probably should not park there. Looking quite a bit better already. New bearings, everything was the same as the other side. I didn't have to transfer races over, otherwise I'd have filmed that. I didn't want to film doing the same thing over here, but lubricated everything, put the new hardware, new pads on, new rotors, new bearings. This caliper was good. So now that wheel bearing won't make any noise. We already know that side's not getting hotter than normal, so we should be good to go. They were just here measuring my lift, by the way, too. Maybe I'll be getting a new lift after all. We'll see what happens with that. Put the tire on. Of course, we're going to torque it. It's going to be a tight squeeze with that flatbed behind me. But we got to take this for a drive one way or another. I'll have to. I'll get the keys and move it. Ooh, that's going to be a tight squeeze. Watch that mirror. All right, let's take this thing for a drive. Listen, you. We got a professional studio production going here. You need to keep it down. Let's go seat these brake pads, make sure the bearing noise is gone, and call this one good to go. Uh-oh. Turning, not turning. All right. That's better. It's already quieter. They can have their van back. That is a valuable lesson. You know, even someone's been doing as long as me. The customer wanted to save some money. They only drive it about 1,000 miles a year. So we try to do one side. And luckily, I road test all my work. All right, listen. Luckily, I road test all my work. Those wheel bearings would have seized up eventually and either snapped that spindle or made it so the vehicle wasn't drivable or got towed back. So, really glad I road test my work. I know you guys do the same. If you're mechanics and you watch my videos, brake jobs, you gotta road test them. Seat the pads and check for potential problems, just like that. Now I know, it might be hard to believe, but Toyotas brake too. Have I mentioned that before? Customer says a mobile mechanic came and checked it out, said he was low on coolant, low on oil, topped off all his fluids, couldn't find out why. And check engine light was on. I guess he didn't want to look at it or something. I don't know. I got my scanner on it. It's seen some use. 249,220 miles on this 2005 Toyota Tacoma. He's a thirsty guy. Well, maybe not, because he doesn't finish them. Half of them have water in them. We got water. We got stuff. We got, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna love rating of 2. Probably should be a 1, but I'm gonna say 2, just because 250,000, 20 years old. I mean, He does have a mass airflow sensor code, P0102, and he does have a temperature circuit code, P0117, temperature sensor circuit code. Although right now it's reading coolant temp very well. It's not overheating. I did put, I thought I wasn't going to look at this till after lunch, but real quick, I've been messing around with it. I put about 3/4 of a gallon in the radiator. It was pretty low. He said that the mobile mechanic added coolant. I ran it with the cap off just to see if it had a head gasket where it would push coolant out or something like that, but so far so good. It's gotten to 190 and basically stabilized. Codes were cleared 38 miles ago, and the mass air is working well, even though it's got a mass air code. Maybe someone had the key on with it unplugged at some point. It actually runs pretty good. No noises, quiet as a mouse now that it's got oil in it and stuff. He said he had to have oil. I know the fan doesn't work except on high. Any other speed, nothing happens. And I know he's got a voltmeter, so he's either a mechanic or he's an HVAC repairman. One of the two. This is where I hit the gas and it shows the mass air. Oh, I gotta get my kickstand. Every time I hit the gas, it responds. It's reading about right. It's a little bit high. This is a 4-liter. So at 500 RPM, you'd expect 4 grams a second. The RPM's a little higher. Probably about right. They're usually a little higher than the displacement. 190.4. It's pretty much locked in there now. Did it have an air pocket and it wasn't really properly filled? Does it have a slow leak? I don't know. So in any event, we're going to let it run a little while, see how hot it gets, and I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to go have my lunch break, and then I'm going to come back and look and see if it left anything on the ground and all that kind of thing. I'm totally at a loss. I'm baffled by the trash and by the fact that it's not doing most of what he said it was doing. Let's shut this thing off. We'll go take a break, and we'll come back. And we'll see if there's any coolant underneath it or any of that kind of thing. We'll also check the oil at that time too. Not a single drippity drop. We're gonna go full Mechanicosaurus on this thing if it's not careful. I'll try to avoid that. It's very dramatic for everybody. Let's see what the oil looks like. Oh, that's nice. Someone's gone through the trouble of putting it almost perfectly on the max line, which I like. And I don't see a single drop. Let's start it up and see if it runs rough or anything. I get nervous when I see like people made their own jumper wires for stuff. And I don't know. I know it wasn't overheating for us earlier since we topped up the radiator level. Runs good, no rough running. If you have a bad head gasket, almost every time when the engine's running, it'll push compression into the cooling system. That's what the blue water's for, to test for combustion gases in the cooling system. But also when you shut it off, then the cooling system pressure is higher than the cylinder pressure, and it'll put water or coolant into whatever cylinder is consuming coolant. And then when you start it up, it'll run rough and clear up. Maybe a little puff of smoke sometimes, depending on how bad it is. But I don't think this has a bad head gasket. I think this thing just went so long without any maintenance. Oil change was due at 247.6. It's got 249.2. And he said his mobile mechanic topped up the reservoir and the oil. But they didn't put anything in the radiator, and that's where the 3 quarts comes from, supposedly. So all I could recommend for this vehicle is a good detail. It's not an emergency. Coolant flush. And to do that oil change, because just topping it up isn't good. Maybe they did change the oil and there's a misunderstanding on that. That's going to be my recommendation on this vehicle. Diagnose the blower resistor, which is 9 times out of 10 that's what it's going to be. Got no low, no medium high. It only works on high. Generally means the resistor's burnt out. Sometimes the connector needs to be replaced too. We can look at that if he wants. He didn't even ask about it. So that's where we're going. And we'll see if he wants to go any further with this thing. It is a Toyota after all. This tired old Hyundai Elantra seems to have a bad battery, but the battery has a date on it. It looks like it says OJKJ24. Kind of strange. What year is this car? I'm gonna say 2013, February. This is the jump box that also tests batteries and charging systems and all that. Let's take a look, see if it's charging. .28, so it's charging. It's super cool. You can jump start a car with it and then test it right afterwards. Now I'll shut it off and we'll see what that battery does. Save. I can, once this is saved, I can send this from my photo files wherever I like. We'll go back and we'll do a battery test, but first I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. Pretty sure it's got a bad battery, but I haven't got this tool out in a while, so I wanted to use it. It's got 152,000 miles on it. That's going to get a 3. I love rating a 3. I probably could go 4, but I don't know. A little too much going on for me. Let's see here. Regular flooded, cold cranking amp, battery rating, next. Voltage too high. Turn on the headlights. What? The headlight lenses are so faded you can't see it. Confirm. Diminished performance, 33%. Let's see if it'll start the car right now. I don't think it will. I had a really hard time trying to get it in the shop. There it goes, nothing. Let's see what the battery says now. Save. Back. Battery test. Next. Confirm. Voltage is too low, 9.6. It's got a bad battery. There's a broken plate in the battery. It shows voltage, and as soon as you load it, it opens up. That means the lead plates inside are damaged. So let's go get a battery for it real quick. I think there's a classic, like 2006 or so, Saturn View I'm supposed to look at next. And I'm not sure what happened, but there's basically no parking spaces in here. Look at this classic Saturn Sport SUV. I mean, she's a gem. They got beautiful oak trees that they park underneath, which is like one of the worst things for your car. That's our dilemma in Florida. The shade destroys your car with leaves and acorns and stuff, which they end up down in the fenders, and they block water drains and cause rot in places that are very expensive to repair. But if you put it out in the sun with no shade, then it destroys the paint, the rubber, the interior, and all that. So you gotta weigh your options. The best is to have a garage, which most people don't. A vacuum cleaner and soap and water help too. This is an old car though, so you can't be too hard on them. 167,304 miles. My goodness gracious. Got a jump box. Got some cool shades. Nice. She is rough. She's gonna get a 2, I'm gonna say. I'm on the border of a 3. Yeah, because of the ducks. Let's go 3 with the ducks. Love the ducks. He said something about the alternator seems to be going bad. He put a battery in it to get it here. I don't see anything about an alternator. I see a coolant light on, ABS light, traction control light. It seems to run a little rough. It was a long, hard crank before it started. So let's take a look at the fluids and see if this thing's charging. He said something about give me an estimate for an alternator and give me an estimate for my vacuum leak, fixing my vacuum leak, but I'm not sure what the vacuum leak part is, but we'll find it, and I'll show you once I figure out what he means. I know one thing, if it needs an alternator, it's way down there. Probably gotta take the fans out or something. Not really sure. I have to look up the procedure. Been a while since I did one of these. That's gotta be his vacuum leak. That'll give it a long crank probably too. It's a big old vacuum leak. That's basically a piece of 5/16 hose, I believe. If it's molded, it'd be better, but it doesn't have to be. If you wanted to, you could just loop it out here and come all back over here so it doesn't kink. Let's get the testing equipment, see if it's charging. Battery lab, jump surge. Battery test I know is going to be good, but we're going to do it anyway. The battery rating, 640. Save. Now we're going to do charging test. Next. Turn off all electronics, start the vehicle, and press OK. I think they mean confirm by OK. The ignition key is, and the tumbler is so worn out, you got to jiggle it and jiggle it until it finally gets the turn. Doesn't give me high hopes for repairing anything, but we'll see. 14.16. Save. Well, that means it's charging. 121 millivolts on the AC current, the AC voltage. So the diodes are in good shape. I don't see anything wrong with the charging system. But this here vacuum leak. Oh, that's nice. Got a new battery. Got an old battery. They're gonna switch places just like pow. They're almost always that easy. And the Saturn behind it, we're gonna switch places with that too. And that's gonna happen almost as fast, but maybe not exactly as fast, but it'll be close. Quick and easy. That's how we like it. Well, I don't know if you can see that there, but it's like 4 millimeters on the inner pad and 2 millimeters on the outer pad. Let's see here. This one's more even. It's 4 and 4. Oh, drum brakes. No cheating. Gotta pull the wheel off. You really should do that anyway. But it's a free safety inspection included with a free vacuum leak test and a 0.3 charging system test. So we're doing a lot of checking for 0.3, so you tend to, I mean, you have to cut a corner somewhere. It's only right. It's about ready for tires. Looks like alignment, or if the springs are worn, the tires will also wear on the inside because it squats. Makes the tires wear on the inside. Yeah, the others are a little bit, but not as bad. I think he initially wanted us to put an alternator in it. And I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying it's charging when I tested it. I'll have to test it again just to make sure. Maybe I'll use a different test tool and see what it does. I could even just put a voltmeter on it, let it run a while, and see if maybe it gets hot and it stops charging. We can also put on some loads, make the alternator work a little harder, see if that stops it from charging. Let's do that. This is just a dust boot. I'm not making it leak or any kind of crazy stuff you see online, mechanics with thieves, etc., etc. The wheel cylinders are leaking. I just watched a video at lunch today too. Some company selling a code reading and clearing tool for $59.95, and they said he claimed that his wife went to a shop and the shop unplugged her mass airflow sensor and told her she needed a mass airflow sensor and a throttle body. So he used this cool little tool to prove that the mechanics are thieves, and he just plugged stuff back in the mechanic got unplugged. And if you buy that little tool, it'll help you clear the check engine light if a mechanic tries to rip you off. And all I could think was, well, if you found them unplugged and you plug them back in, if you drive it a few times, it'll turn the check engine light off on its own. You don't have to buy their tool. So who's really the thief? Not to mention, I've never worked with a mechanic, and I've worked with a lot of shady people. I've never worked with someone that would unplug a throttle body and send a woman down the road with it right that way. So either it was already unplugged and he missed it, which is a little incompetent, or the people selling you the devices are full of crap, which is more likely. I'm just about tired of hearing mechanics are thieves. That's basically what I'm saying. This thing needs wheel cylinders, but the brakes are okay, and the fluid hasn't migrated to the shoes and the linings yet, so we could just put wheel cylinders in it at this point. We got to see if he wants to look into the low coolant level warning light being on, even though the tank is full. And like I said too, I'm also going to let the alternator do its thing and see if it intermittently doesn't charge or that kind of thing. All right, I'm going to put the wheel back on there. I'm assuming we're not going to do brakes today, and I can have my lift and stuff at least. We'll see what happens with that. Went ahead and put a piece of hose in there to fix that vacuum leak so I could run it without having the thing leaned out and all. It's one of the things too that the reason it irritates me so much with all the mechanics or thieves stuff is 99% of the time people don't have any idea what they're talking about, and incompetence is a much bigger problem than thievery, which isn't much better, but at least it's honest ignorance rather than thievery. To me, it's a little better. Maybe it's not. But that happens in all industries, just like I've always said. It's not an occupational thing that makes you a thief. it's the person you are. I also added coolant to see if that light went out, and it didn't. The ABS light's still on. So when people say a mechanic is a thief too, consider that. I had to fix a vacuum leak, check and repair the vacuum leak, check the charging system, do a safety inspection, pull the wheels off, take a look at all the brakes, suspension, steering, write an estimate for 0.3, which is essentially about $15 I get paid. So I'm not sure it's the mechanics that are the thieves. I'm just saying. What do you guys tell me in the comments? Maybe I'm wrong. All right, enough of that. I gotta look at the wipers and a couple other little things, and then we'll make a little list. 167,000 miles. It's really not bad a shape. It runs like a top. All right, we got the lights on, AC on, fans running high, radio's on, still at 14. So I'll let it run 20-30 minutes while I do something else. We'll find another car to work on or something, and we'll pay attention to see if this ever drops. If it gets down to 13.2, 13.1, that kind of thing, you know the alternator is getting weak. All right, I let this thing run till my voltmeter timed out, which is about 15-20 minutes, and it's still at 14 volts. So he's going to talk to the customer about the little things, the few things I found on the list: wheel cylinders, rear wiper, wheel alignment. Keep an eye on that tire. See if he wants to get that coolant bottle light out. Usually the sensor's in the bottle. Sometimes you can replace them, sometimes you can't. I'm also going to get a little more aggressive with my pressure tester on here and see if we can spot something going on with this thing. Because I'm thinking that water or coolant had to go somewhere. Don't get too crazy. We don't want to make something leak. We want to find a leak. Nothing. We'll let it sit like that a few minutes, see if it loses pressure, or if we see some drops on the ground, and we'll start it a fourth time to see if it runs rough after sitting a little bit with some pressure. I spilled a little bit, don't worry about that. All right, Rob is pulling that around. I had 20 psi on it for like 20 minutes, not a drop on the ground. So we're getting ready to close up. I got to pull the old hot rod, rat rod, aka project truck in. You guys have seen the videos on this, haven't you? Some of the videos are getting circulated a little more. I'm getting questions about the Boyd's fuel tank I put in it and stuff like that now, so people are seeing the videos a little more, I guess, which is cool. 98 videos on this truck, and we are done for the day. So appreciate you guys watching today. It's been a lot of fun. We got a lot done today, a lot of hard work on that big van. Those parts are heavy and I'm old. I hope you'll torque the like button for me before you head out. Maybe subscribe if you haven't yet, and I hope I see you in the next video more than anything, because you're awesome.